How do you kind of get started with throwing a knuckleball? Did you just like randomly like one day just start throwing it? Is it just something that you like look at like past pictures and just realize like, hey, maybe I can do this? It's just not super common anymore.
Yeah, so when I was about 9, me and my dad were playing catch, and I just started throwing the knuckleball. I didn't tell him what I was throwing. It just came, and the instant he seen it, he asked me what I was doing, and I told him, and he said, "Don't stop throwing that. That's going to be your pitch." And we worked on it for so long, and numerous grips, numerous ways letting it out the hand. Finally, we ended up finding the most people will use 2 fingers. I use 3 or I use 4. I have 2 different grips that I use depending on what movement I want off of it.
How long, especially because you kind of work on that and it's not like super common, how long does it take to kind of like learn that, like learn the correct like way of like having like the way of holding basically the baseball? And is it something that you like watch other people like talk about?
I feel like for anybody that would take a decent amount of time, for me even, I still don't fully have it down yet. It's one of the pitches that I do have trouble with at times, but when it's on, it's on. It's just hard to let it out of the hand every single time the same exact way.
Yeah, which is absolutely understandable. And also having kind of that pitch that you don't see a lot of pitching coaches probably experience. Like, was it like working with pitching coaches on that kind of pitch? Is it like you just kind of like tell them that you throw it and they just kind of give advice, or do they kind of just leave it alone because you don't see a lot of people throwing the pitch?
When I bring it up to pitching coaches, a lot of them really don't believe it at first. And then once I finally start throwing it, they're like, okay, you actually have a real knuckleball. And I've worked with a bunch. Like last summer, I worked with, his name's Greg Lukanen. He's playing in the American Association League. He loved it. My pitching coach is coming into Dearborn. He didn't. Normally, when people tell you they have a knuckleball, they don't have a knuckleball. And then when you finally see it, you're surprised.
Was he able to help you out a little bit, or do you kind of watch your like own film? Like, do you kind of watch professional pitchers just kind of say like, hey, obviously you said there's different ways of gripping it. You kind of found your own way, but like there has to be a little bit of like trial and error throughout that process.
Yeah, 100%. I do watch a lot of my film. At least I try to, especially with the knuckleball more than anything else, so I can see what I'm doing wrong or what I'm doing right. But the Detroit Tigers, they have a pitcher in their farm system. His name's Kenny Serwa, and I've been keeping up with him since he was playing semi-pro ball and just watching his knuckleball develop. He goes on Instagram and he shows the grips and stuff and how he lets it out. And over the past year, that's helped me out a lot.
Do you ever like reach out to anyone, or do you kind of ever like talk with anyone that throws a knuckleball and kind of just throw it back and forth, like, hey, try this, or is it truly like one of those pitches that like you can kind of like take like advice from video, but you can still kind of have to do what works for you because it's just such a different pitch.
Yeah, on this past summer, we were playing a team from Southern Ohio, and they had a kid throwing a knuckleball, playing long toss with it, and I noticed it. And we went out, we talked for about 35, 40 minutes, and it was crazy meeting somebody else that throws that pitch and has the same success with it. But then we have 2 kids at Dearborn that both throw knuckleballs, and we've all sat around, we've talked about it. You don't see it a lot, so we've all compared our grips and stuff. But I feel like most of the time, a pitch like that is going to be self-taught.
Did you like look up to like anyone? Is there anyone specifically that like really like made you want to become or at least try a knuckleball?
I was a Yankee fan, so this is crazy, but Tim Wakefield.
Okay.
Watching Tim Wakefield when I was growing up was one of the coolest things ever. He would make people look so crazy with his knuckleball.
That's kind of surprising. You don't see a lot of Yankee fans, or at least it's kind of like if you're a Yankee fan, like either you're a Yankee fan, Red Sox fan. I'm sure that you've probably gone through that rivalry a little bit. I feel like most people that are Yankee fans are from New York, honestly, but now you're obviously wearing a Detroit Tigers hat, so hopefully now you're a little bit more of a Detroit Tigers fan, but I'm sure you're probably still a Yankees fan too.
Yeah, I am. My whole family is pretty much Yankees fans.
How did that come to be? Like, how do you become a Yankees fan?
So we have a lot of family all around the world. Family in New Jersey, just stuff like that. And it's
Okay.
when my dad was younger, he fell in love with the Yankees, and it kind of just merged onto me when I was born.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely understandable. I feel like for you have to either be a Yankees or a Red Sox fan for the most part if you are one side or the other of the rivalry. So it's definitely obviously the biggest rivalry in the MLB, but I'm a Tigers fan, so unfortunately, I'm sure you've seen a little bit more success with the Yankees than the Tigers recently, but that's okay. But yeah, so obviously you kind of started out throwing the knuckleball at a young age, and one thing about like pitching at a young age that people talk about is obviously like don't try to ruin your like arm. Like a lot of people might say like, hey, don't throw like a curveball, don't throw breaking pitches, especially at a young age. But you started at 9 years old. Was there any really concern about like your arm with like the knuckleball, especially kind of that young, or especially going into like high school, or was it something that you just kind of knew there was a possibility there? It's just like it was just your best pitch and you just went with it.
Um, I would definitely say it was my best pitch and we went with it. My dad did want me to avoid the sliders and the curveballs until I got into like high school because he wanted me just to have my fastball change up knuckleball so my arm wasn't getting any type of stress on it or anything at a young age. As I went into high school and stuff, I did start throwing the curveball and slider more, but it's always been predominantly knuckleball.
And especially at a young age, I'm sure no one's ever seen a knuckleball, so I'm sure if you could throw it for a strike, you probably got some interesting swing and misses.
Yeah, especially at like those like younger age groups, like 11U and 12U, they would just sit there and freeze. They never knew that anybody would just come out throwing a knuckleball, especially at a younger age.
And you probably still kind of get those reactions or maybe those interesting swings, especially in college. I think you got one or two at least in the summer league that you just went through. So like it has to be kind of still like pretty cool. Like does it ever get like used to it, or is it every single time you just kind of just sit there and try not to laugh for the most part?
I would definitely say I'm not used to it still. There's times where I'll watch a pitch go and it's just like wow. Like I don't know how that came out of my hand. Like when we were playing our first set of the year, I was pitching against a kid from Marshall and I threw him a knuckleball and he just froze and he just stared at me after I was walking off the field and he just stood in the box for like 2 minutes after he struck out and I was like I don't know how that came out like that.
So when you throw your knuckleball, do you try to throw it more for strikes, or do you try to kind of get it low in the zone so that when they swing, like it's not even close? Or does it just kind of depend on the situation?
I would definitely say depending on the situation. I am more for trying to make it move and float and wiggle around because that's like my favorite thing to watch is just hitters try to get on it but they can't.
And obviously, on the other end of it, like catchers, like they have to try to catch your pitch. I'm sure that's probably some sort of conversation that you have to be had for the first time someone ever catching you is like, hey, I have a knuckleball. It might not necessarily move exactly the way that you think it might.
Yeah, we had a catcher this past summer. He's at Cal State now. He was surprised with my knuckleball because even he said, I've heard people say they throw it, but it does not move like that. And there was a couple I threw him this year that were really, really nasty.